Welcome to tecversity. This is Venkatesh Natraj. Hope you all are doing great. Today I'm going to talk about IP addresses, Internet Protocol Address. For every device, whether it's a smartphone, smart TV, tablet, or a computer or a laptop, if it is accessing network or internet, it needs an IP address. For every device to access the network, it needs to have mandatorily two addresses. One is MAC address, which is Media Access Control Address, and the other one is IP address. Today I'm going to talk complete details about IP addresses. What all the classes in IP addresses, what is public IP, what is private IP, what is APIPA, what is static IP, dynamic IP, and what is DHCP server. So I'm going to cover a lot details about IP addresses in this video. So with no delay, let's get into the topic. Before that, if you haven't subscribed to tecversity, please do subscribe and support, and don't forget to click on bell icon. Let's jump into IP addresses. Like I mentioned in the intro, let's start with the networking IP address. IP address is the logical address. For every network to be successful, it needs two addresses. One is IP address, which is Internet Protocol Address, also known as logical address, and also known as 32-bit address. I will explain what exactly is 32-bit address. And the other one is physical address, which is MAC address, Media Access Control Address, which is a 48-bit address. For every NIC card or a Wi-Fi card, this is very important. There will be a MAC and that will be having a 48-bit address. I'll explain in short about what is 48-bit and what is 32-bit. If you think about an IP address, the IP address typically looks like this: 192.168.0.1. Now, every number is divided by an octet, which is a dot, and this number is called as octet. The reason it is called as octet is this number will be translated into binary language. We discussed in other video about binary language, how the binary conversion happens. Similarly, every number in IP address will also convert into 8 bits. It could be a combination of zeros and ones, but every number will have a unique value. For example, zeros will be 8 zeros, one will have 8 ones. 168 is, again, we will do the LCM and it will become zeros, ones and zeros, ones. So similarly, for every IP address, there will be 4 numbers, and each number will be converted into binary, into zeros and ones, and that every number will be converted into 8 bits. So 8 into 4 is 32-bit. That is the reason it is known as 32-bit address. So for example, this will become 8 bits, 8 bits, 8 bits, and 8 bits. So 8 into 4, 8 4s, that's equal to 32. So it will be known as 32-bit address, and this is a logical address. Now we will try to understand what are the classes, like why do we need a class and what are the classes in IP address, and how do we identify the IP address by its class. There will be a topic called subnet that we will be discussing separately. I will touch on a high level about the subnet masking. But in this video, we will discuss about IP address, how do we configure IP address, and where do we configure IP address, and what are the classes. By seeing the IP address, we should be able to recognize which class it belongs to. So we will have that conversation and discussion today in this session. So to start with, let me erase this part. IP address will be falling between 0 to 255. If you see any IP address, the number of IP address will fall between 0 to 255. You cannot use 256 or 257 or anything above 255, or not even minus numbers like beyond 0. If there are like 0, -1, -2, you cannot use that. So the IP address fall between 0 to 255. And like I mentioned in my previous example, 192.168.0.1, this first octet, the first octet defines which class of IP address it is falling in between. So let's have a look at it now. The IP addresses, like I mentioned, it starts from 0 to 255. So the number 0 to 127, remember 0 to 127, this is known as class A IP address, class A. And then 128.191 is known as class B IP address. And then 192.223 is class C. Mostly we use class C in our day-to-day activities and our day-to-day life, but I will explain about class A, class B, class C, and what exactly this is all about. And then 224 to 239, this is class D. And then 240 to 255 is class E. So class D and class E are excluded. These two we are not using in our day-to-day life. We will be using saving this for a scientific purpose. We will not be using this. So think only class A, class B, class C. These are primarily important, and these are what we use in our day-to-day life. Now, apart from this, there is something like what we have to understand is there are other type of IP addresses. What exactly other type of IP addresses means? There is a public IP address, there is a private IP address, there is a static IP address, there is a dynamic IP address, there is a APIPA. So all these five are different concepts that we will be discussing in depth while we are learning about the IP address. So now we will try to understand what is class A. Like I mentioned, class A starts with 0 to 127. Now if you think about an IP address, now if you give an IP address like this 1.0.0.0, this IP address, like I mentioned, the first octet defines the IP address which class it belongs to. Since it is falling between 0 to 127, this entire IP address range is falling under class A. Now this is extremely important because the first octet will define. Until 127 here, you will see this entire IP address will be part of class A. Now how do we know what exactly the difference is? Now for example, I have a huge network and I am giving IP address of 10.0.0.0, and the next machine, the first machine has 1.0.0.0.0, and the next machine will have 1.0.0.1, and then next machine has 2, and then next machine has 3. Till I have allocated till 255, this will continue. That means after giving 255 machines IP address, this will become this 255. That means, like I mentioned earlier, the IP address will fall only between 0 to 255. We cannot use anything further. So the next IP address will be 1.0.1.0. Since I have already finished 255, this 0 will become 1, and now 1.0, again under 1 it will become 0, and here it will continue up to 255. That means 1.0.1.1, 2, 3, 4 till 255. And once I finish 255 here, then this will become 2. That means it will look like this. So what I have done is 1.0.0.0 till 255 I have already finished, and then 1.0 till 255 I have finished, which is 255, almost 512 machines I have already completed. 510 machines I have already completed, and then I am giving 1.0.2.0 and then till 255. Till how much I can give is max up to 255. So this 0, 1, 2 till here it will become 3, 4, 5, 6 till 255. That means in every one number it is changing. We have 255 additional machines or additional IP addresses we are giving. And now we have finished here 255. Think 1.0.0.0 till we have given 1.0.255.0. We have already finished everything. So let me erase this for clear. So I have given 255.255. That means I have completed one complete range, and then what will happen is then it will become 1.1. This 0 will become 1, and then this will become 0, and then this will become 0. Again I will have an option to give IP addresses here up to 255, and then here up to 255.255, which is almost 65,536 machines I can allocate in a single number if I change it here, and then after this I will change this to 2, and then again 2.0.0 and then 2.0.1, and this will go up to 255, and then it will become 1, and then it will go up to 255, and then this will become 3. So in a one class IP addresses we are giving so much. So think, after finishing all this range, we have reached to 1.255.255.255 machines, then this will become 2. That means the network ID is changing. The first octet is also known as the which defines the class. So the in the class here, the first octet will also known as the network ID, and the next 3 will be the host IDs. So network ID, NID plus host ID. Remember these terms, it's very important. So the network ID defines which class it belongs to. Since I mentioned 1.0 to 127, these are falling under class A. So class A will have the first octet as NID dot HID dot HID dot HID. So that is how the IP address in class A. Now let's understand how it looks in class B. Hope this is very clear. In case if there is a confusion, please drop a comment. I would be more happy to explain in detail. Now let's see, like I mentioned, class B will start from 128 to 291. So example 128.0.0.0. Think this is the IP address of class B. Now in class B, the network ID will be the first 2 octets will be network ID, and the next 2 octets will be host ID. That means if there is a change in the network ID, that will be considered as a different network. Like I mentioned in the class A, the first octet, in case if it is changing from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 or 3 to 4, that will be considered as a different class. Whatever falling under the same network, that means that if there is a change in the network ID, that will have a different network, and then that will require an additional device called router to communicate between 2 networks. Unless there is no change in the network ID, that definitely we don't need any additional devices. We can communicate within the machines with the minimal networking supporting devices. So router will require only when there is a network change. So I will come into that details in short. So the class A will have one network ID dot host ID dot host ID dot host ID. That means there will be 3 host IDs and the 1 network ID. When it comes to class B, the first 2 will become the network ID and the next 2 will become the host IDs. That means in a single network in class B, we can accommodate hardly 255 into 255 machines, which is approximately 65,000 change. How exactly this calculation is? Let's see. So like in the previous example, I have explained about 1.0.0.0. Similarly, we'll see 128.0.0.1 and then 2 and then 3 till 255, and after 255 128.0.1 into 1.0, and then here it will come up to 255 till this 1 become 2, 2 becomes till 255. That means we can have 255 into 255 machines in one network. And after that, if there is a change in the network ID, that means like I mentioned, there will be 2 network IDs in the 2 octets will fall under the class B network IDs. So any change here will consider that as a separate network. That means there is a change in the network ID. That means there is a additional requirement of hardware is required to communicate within these 2 different networks. So class A will have 1 network ID and 3 host IDs. Class B will have 2 network IDs and 2 host IDs. And let's see how exactly this happens in class C. So class C starts with 192 to 223. Now best example is 192.0.0.0, So here the class, the network ID will be the first 3 and the host ID will be the last octet. So this will be the network ID and this will be the host ID. So in a single class C network, we can accommodate hardly 255 machines. Anything beyond 255, there will be a change in the network ID and that will be considered as a separate network, and we need an additional requirement of hardware to communicate between these two networks. So for example, 192.0.0.1 till 255. After 255, this will become 1, and that means there is a change in the network ID. So these two cannot be communicated. We need a router in place. And there is a concept also called subnet masking, and that will also define which network it falls, like which class it falls. We can tweak the subnet. That will be a different topic completely, but I will show how exactly this happens on the machine, and this is an intro for the IP addresses to understand at the basic level, and I will show it on the machine. I will show when I give the first IP address, the number 1 in the network ID, how exactly the system will communicate, will think which class it fall under and what is the subnet. So to give a precise information, very short details about class A subnet. Class A, like I mentioned, it starts with 0 to 127. The subnet mask will be 255.0.0.0. This is the subnet mask. And then for class B, it will be 128 to 191, and the subnet mask will be 255.255.0.0. And then for class C, it will be 192 to 223. The subnet mask will be 255.255.255.0. And there, like I mentioned, there will be a separate topic about the subnet masks. In subnet mask, we can make this 255 to 254, 252, and that will change the number of IP addresses and which is falling, which is an advanced topic at this moment. We will discuss that in a different topic. But at the very high level on the IP addresses, to understand from the basics, this is what you have to understand. Now I'll show it on the machine. How you identify the IP addresses depends on the subnet mask and depends on the IP address. So the moment you enter the IP address and the moment you give the first octet, whatever the number it falls under, it will automatically identify what is the class, what is the subnet mask and everything. So let's get into the machine to get the details. Before that, getting into it, if you have any questions, please comment and share this video with your friends. Let's jump into the machine. Hello, I'm going to show now on the machine how to assign an IP address, from where to check this information. And I have created a dummy network adapter just for the testing purpose. I will also show in a separate video how to create the dummy network adapter for your practice. For now, I will try to show you the configuration of IP addresses, and the moment we give the first octet, how exactly that changes the subnet and how it identifies everything. So in order to do that, let's go to run, type ncpa.cpl, enter. This will open the network configuration page where you will see all the network adapters including your wireless network. Here I have created a dummy which I said, which is a KM test loopback adapter. So I will just double click on it, click on properties and select Internet Protocol version 4. Now here there are two options, which is obtain an IP address automatically, which is a part of the DHCP, which is an advanced topic in IP addresses, which will be covered in the next videos. IP addresses IP address have several topics that needs to be covered. So since this is an intro video on IP classes and the basics of IP addresses, I'm not going to talk about DHCP, but this will be covered in the upcoming videos. So for now, what we do is we'll select the use the following IP address option. Here, the moment you enter, like I mentioned, the IP address should fall between 0 to 255. So in case if you try to add anything 268 or anything, it says 268 is not valid entry, please specify a value between 1 to 223. Now think like this. So I'm giving a random number like 90,999, so it will not accept, so it should fall between 0 to 255. Now I'm giving the IP address which between I'll try to give the IP address between a class A which is 0 to 127, and the moment I enter the random number between these numbers like 0 to 127, I'll hit tab and automatically it will populate the subnet mask. There will be a different topic on tweaking the subnet mask which I'm not going to cover now, but let's see how this is. So here I'm giving a random number 88 and I hit tab. The moment I hit tab, you see the subnet mask is automatically populated and it says 255.0.0.0. So this is considering the subnet mask for class A is the first network ID. The first octet will be considered as network ID and the rest 3 will be considered as host IDs. So the same replicates in the subnet. The first ID will be 255 and the next 3 octets will be zeros. So let's try to do that with a different number now. So I will show here the class B IP address. So I'm giving a random number 165. I have not given anything in the next octets and I just clicked on tab. Now the moment I hit tab, what happened is the 165 will fall under class B. The class B has 2 network IDs and 2 host IDs. So the first 2 network IDs will have the subnet of 255.255 and for the host IDs it shows as 0.0. Similarly, if you type a random number between class C, now let's see, class C is starting from 192.223, so I'll give 220 and hit tab. Now you can see the subnet mask has populated as 255.255.255.0. Now this is how we actually give the IP address. So the IP address I generally use is either 10.0.0.0, and the moment I hit on tab, it will, since 10 is falling under the class A, we will see the subnet mask as 255.0.0.0. See, that's how. So this is how you will the system will understand the IP addresses. The first octet number makes the change. There is something called subnet mask tweaks where you will change, instead of 255 you will tweak it to 254 or 252. That will change the number of machines that you can accommodate into one single network. That's a very advanced topic I'm not going to cover at this moment, but a high level understand subnet mask is something like a VLAN. VLAN in the sense people who did Cisco routing and are people who have understanding. We are blocking a specific network connection using only to specific systems. People who use this IP address will be a specific port that will have a specific network. Similarly, subnet will also kind of a logical VLAN that will make sure we will be restricted to access a certain limitations with the network, limitations on the network. So it's a very high level advanced topic we will be discussing in the upcoming videos, but for now try to understand the IP address is the logical address. It's a 32-bit address and it has the reason why we call this 32-bit is each octet will be converted into binaries, and that is a binary language topic, and 32-bit is like every octet will be separated by a dot like this. And this what we are discussing today in this session is IPv4, Internet Protocol version 4. There is another topic called Internet Protocol version 6, which is a 128-bit address, which is again another topic for networking that we will be discussing in the future. Hope this information is useful, and try to play with your IP addresses on your machine. You don't need to mess up anything. In case if you mess up anything, just what you do is just go to double click on it, click on properties, double click on the IPv4, make sure you select this two and click OK and click OK. That's it. Nothing is going to change anything. It will go back to its original state. And hope this information is useful. If you not subscribed yet to tecversity, please do subscribe and share this video with your friends and family. Please don't forget to click on the bell icon. that will give you a notification whenever I upload the next video. See you in the next video. Have a good day.